Hello, everyone, and good morning to those of you who are tuning in from the PST time. I am Stacey Amberry, and I will be your moderator and host for this amazing power panel. Our theme is Breaking Barriers. So, just a little bit about my background. I am the president and founder of B Stellar Group, Inc., a government relations and professional development firm based in Toronto, Canada. I've been in the industry for the last, I would say, over 10 years, perhaps, doing government relations and community development work. I also am the chapter president for Blacks in Technology Foundation, which is a US based nonprofit that helps to stop the digital divide. And we have chapters in 19 countries. So I want to get right into letting you know a little bit more about our phenomenal panelists. We have a great group of women who will each start with introductions of who they are and the companies they represent. So perhaps we can start with Karen.
Sure. Yes. Thank you so much, Stacey. And I'm really happy to be with you all here today. So I represent my own company, XR Connected, through which I provide consulting on XR education, on a strategy for XR startups. And also I am a community builder, about which you'll hear more in a moment. I also work with Metaverse, a 3D on web platform based in Toronto. I'm their director of immersive learning, and I'm helping them with their compliance processes. I'm a member of the Poly's WebXR Awards and WebXR events team, and we will be producing the Poly Awards, the Poly's WebXR Awards, the third edition, on March 5th this year. And most relevant for this panel today, I am one of the co-founders and leaders of XR Women, which is a community that we started in late 2020. We've now passed 2 years and more than 100 events. We have nearly 700 women in our community from more than 50 different countries. And we'll talk a little bit more about those later.
Certainly. Thank you so much. And perhaps Babbitt, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Babette Jackson. I'm coming from Edward Jones. I'm an insider threat and data loss prevention engineer. A little bit about my background is since we're here representing women, in 2019, I graduated from Cal Poly Pomona, one of the only African American females in cybersecurity. And yeah, so some of the things that I do is that I have my own Instagram where I give people tips about cybersecurity and make it fun and interesting. I'm also on TikTok and then also on LinkedIn. And I'm kind of just here to spread the word about cybersecurity and make it more fun and interesting so people can be more interested in it overall.
Awesome. Thank you for that and the work you're doing. Charlene, would you like to go next?
Thank you so much. And thank you guys so much. You've done an amazing job coordinating this event. It's really great to be a part of it. My name is Charlene Nichols. I am the founder of the Omniverse City. The Omniverse City is a metaverse platform that was designed to create inclusivity and focus specifically on small and medium businesses. My passion is specifically small and medium businesses in the optical sector. I've been in the optical sector for 26 and a half years. And my career started really more on the back end of the industry, developing B2B logistics solutions, consumables management. And, you know, being in an industry like that and seeing it from all facets, it gave me a really interesting kind of 360-degree perspective. So about 6 years ago, I had an opportunity to decide, you know, where I wanted to apply my talents. And I decided to resign from my corporate position and see what sort of solutions I could create to empower the locally owned businesses that I had just grown to love and become super loyal to. And it led me to a lot of fun adventures. And, you know, it's so great to be here today. And I look forward to talking more about all of the new technologies and what I've learned.
Awesome. Thank you, Charlene. And Safa, would you like to introduce yourself? Safa?
Yeah. How are you? I am Safa Lattar from Syria. I work as an administrative manager at Resur Company, which work in the IT and digital marketing sector. I am interested in metaverse and studying the impact of the metaverse on societies, especially the communities that suffer from the conflicts and war. That's in general. And I'm happy to be with you today.
Awesome. Thank you, Safa. And thanks for joining us. And last, Bay, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone. Good morning and good afternoon and good evening from where I'm based here in the Netherlands. I'm the co-founder of Streetfire Studios. So at Streetfire Studios, we tell stories in 3D worlds, characters, and experiences. We are supported by Epic Games and powered by Unreal Engine 5. So basically, we create 3D content and assets ranging from conceptual design to virtual worlds. So as you can see from the virtual background, this is one of the original IP we developed based on Asian Zodiac. So currently we are in the year of Tiger. So in about, I think about maybe a few days or a week time, we're going to enter the year of Rabbit. With a career background in journalism and NGOs, I'm currently also an academia researcher focusing on the media narratives about digital technologies, especially on the rising global south. So yeah, an entrepreneur and a researcher.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bay. And thank you again to each of you for the work you're doing. And shout out to Christopher Lafayette and his team for putting this panel together and giving us the opportunity to really highlight the great work women are doing in this space and the work that needs to be done as well, because the space is not equal and accessible for everyone. So I want to start with a little bit of a discussion of the metaverse, right? We're hearing a lot of people talk about it, wondering what it is, confused about what it is, but it doesn't have like one static definition. So perhaps I'll go back to you, Charlene, if you want to let us understand to you, how do you define the metaverse?
So, in order to answer that question, I have to tell you that I was building a metaverse platform without even knowing what that word was, truly and clearly. And I built a metaverse for what I believe the most organic sense of the metaverse is, which is simply to bring people together that really needed to connect and really had no other way. In our industry, if you're a small and medium business owner, you can't really get out to these conferences. You got to focus on your business and you miss so many updates. So I was really passionate about creating a place for that inclusivity, regarding like your ability to, be in the same place at the same time. And we just kept improving what we were doing to make it enjoyable, to make it feel like you're really in a real world setting. Because what we found is digital alone, like, a lot of people are kind of talking about the difference between Web 2 and Web 3. If you're not immersive, you really can't get that, like, you can't get connected. It's like there's like, it's missing something. So I think in my opinion, and again, I'm coming from somebody who's only a year in the Web3 space, just to be clear, my definition of the metaverse today would be a place where two people can connect in a way that is very meaningful, as close as possible to in real life, without any disruption, and with each of those individuals having their own ability to control their personal experience completely disruption free. That's really the basic definition that I feel qualified to share today.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that definition. And Babette, what about you? How would you define the metaverse?
So I just came up with this definition today, this morning, and imagine like a kitchen, and in this kitchen you have literally all the ingredients and all the tools you need. But on the flip side, you have all the chefs from around the world, all different cooking styles. So you go into this kitchen and you can pick and choose the different chefs that you want to use, the different tools you want to use, the different ingredients. And when it comes to cooking, once you know the basics, there's no rules to it. You can literally make anything that you want without anyone coming in and saying you're supposed to do it this way because it's yours. And that's what I think of when I think of the metaverse.
I love it. Sign me up for that metaverse. And Karen, how would you define the metaverse?
Sure, yes. Well, in one way, I would describe it as the 3D web, the internet, but expanded into the realm of 3D, which of course enables so much more to take place, and including the people being able to share spatial environments together. And I certainly do think of the metaverse as being a place, but multiple places, but having this spatial element where we can gather and we can accomplish a variety of things. But yes, like the internet, like the web, being a source of information, of connecting with other people, but in 3D.
That sounds good. And Bay, how would you describe the metaverse?
Yeah, I think all the other ladies already spoke of all the keywords that I wanted to say. And from my perspective, I simply like to also tell people that I believe that metaverse is a network of 3D virtual worlds, but focusing really on social connection. But I do want to bring up something from me and my colleagues of the studio, because we all share a kind of DNA of being either content creators or from the creative industry. We believe at this moment, metaverse is truly early. So kind of looking forward, we think it's still like changing. But for us, our belief is that it should be, and definitely it's a decentralized and it's a creator-driven ecosystem. And we also believe that it should be a symbiotic playground of technology and humanity. And also on the mass adoption side, we hope and we believe that metaverse will be a way to blend the physical and digital worlds.
Awesome. And Safa, would you like to add to your definition, the definition of the metaverse from your perspective?
Yeah, I think you covered all points, but in general, it's a completely different new era that includes all professional and societal sectors. But for me, I think we should humanly invest in, because will give us pros and cons in the same way.
Awesome. Thank you so much, ladies. So one of the other things that we want to think about, we know that technology transforms how we connect, how we live, it transforms industries. Can each of you comment on a key aspect of society that you believe the metaverse is going to transform? Perhaps Bay,
Well,
we
one thing
or Shirley?
I was
Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
one thing I was going to add, and I figured I'll wait because gives me a perfect moment. I was actually reading several mindset books while I was building this whole metaverse project, because this is intimidating. This is very difficult. It's one thing to be in it; it's another thing to build it. Okay, and I was like, it clicked to me that one of the things the metaverse does is it broadens your, like, makes your mind think that anything is possible. And anybody who studied mindset and really like visualization, like if you could visualize it, if you could dream it, you can make it happen. And with the metaverse, it's so much easier to do that. I think you're going to see an explosion of innovation among people because they're not going to feel confined and limited anymore. Women, minorities, children, I mean, we're all going to have power that we never had before, and we're going to have a lot of responsibility. This is such an important time. I'm so glad that this conference is getting so much attention, because the world needs to know the metaverse is not 5 to 10 years away. It is absolutely here. And even if it is 5 to 10 years away, that gives you possibly just enough time to prepare you and your families and your business for it. So I think how it's going to shape society is it's going to give us all an opportunity to get around one subject where nobody's in control. If somebody controls the internet, somebody controls the countries and cities that you live in. Nobody controls the internet. And hopefully, if we really work together, we can keep it that way.
Bay, would you like to add on an aspect of society that will change?
Yeah, I think for sure, because I believe that it's really focusing, the metaverse, existence of metaverse is really for social connection. And we already see like really it disrupted, but also bring a lot of interesting evolution of the creative industry. Because I think if we look back like in the last 10 years or last 5 years, we see in the for example, you see worldwide more like user generated content is taking over the spaces, and you also see like the different diversity of creativities is adding into the storytelling and brand building. And at the same time, I think worldwide people are connected in a different way, because in the past, I've been in the creative industry for almost like 2 decades. It used to be really like siloed, and now it becomes unsiloed. And also it used to be quite a hierarchy, but now I think it becomes more kind of like inclusive. And definitely you see the call for creatives around the world. They also want to really fight for being rewarded, because traditionally there's a lot of like exploitation of creators, content creators, of story writers, and storytellers, etc. So I do think that it has already a major impact. And we also see the like younger generation. I would like to bring in like the Gen Z. They are the digital natives. They grow up in connecting with each other. So I think this also brings a really nice, like I said again, decentralized and also a creator driven element. And I like what Charlene just said, that there's no one should control or dictate this. So I think that's really like exciting for this trends. Yeah.
Yes, it is awesome. And I do have a question for you specifically, Karen, around the contribution of women and why this is essential, and how XR Women is ensuring that women are involved in the XR community. We also know that one of the challenges we face as women is that we're kind of cut out of leadership roles, and there's tons of articles and research that breaks down those statistics and what they look like sector by sector. But just from your insights, why is the contribution of women essential, and how is XR Women involved?
Sure, sure. And before I get to that, I just briefly want to say that I love the answers, these previous answers from the others. And I like this idea that new technological changes open up creative possibilities, and also that the limits are not the limits of the technology, they're the limits of the imagination. We can do anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
But with regard to XR Women, so we formed this community in order to give women the confidence that they need to succeed, to celebrate their successes, to allow us to learn from one another, to come together, and to support and provide opportunities for collaboration, for mentorship, and women are absolutely key, because we are absolutely key to the world. I mean, what's the saying, that women hold up half the sky? And and here we are. We need to be integrally involved in the creation of the metaverse and what happens there. Unfortunately, yes, the tech sector is dominated by young white males, but the metaverse is for everyone. And in building it, it's crucial that the interests of everyone are represented, especially now at this time, in these early days when we're laying some very important foundations, and with the things like artificial intelligence coming into play. We need to make sure that biases are not built into the world, into the metaverse, and that the structures do not exclude people. So we need to have women's voices involved in saying what the metaverse is, how it should be built, and what it is that takes place there, and what is possible there to help create that vision.
Mm-hmm. And there is a lot of possibilities. Thank you for that. And Safa, when we think about the startup communities, and it's filled with so many opportunities, from your perspective and experience, what type of opportunities should women be taking disadvantage of? And do you see areas where they're not taking advantage of that they should be?
I think the women have the capabilities and power to enter any community in general, but the women workforce percentage in care and the NGO, also in the attention industry, is the highest, while direct in engineering, manufacturing, and agriculture is decreased. So that means we need to intensify our efforts in these sectors.
Awesome. That's important to do that. And Charlene, for those of us who are, entrepreneurs, How can business owners benefit from engaging in the metaverse? And what type of opportunities should entrepreneurs, even like myself, I'm a service provider, but what kind of opportunities should we explore?
This is such a great question, and it's going to be very hard for me to answer concisely. So I'll just give you an example. When you say entrepreneur, I think people think in a very limited way. You think somebody who goes out and they get an MBA, or they go and they get an LLC or whatever. But I'm going to give you an example of an entrepreneur that I have a lot of respect for. This is a young doctor. She's an optometrist, and she worked for corporate optometry. Now, there's a lot of people that end up working for corporate optometry that would prefer not to, but opening up a practice in today's very centralized industry is extremely difficult. So she was working for a corporate office, wanted some way to work for the couture, amazing sector, and wanted to have her own business. Now, my company has built many tools in addition to the metaverse. One of them is a toolbox called Optical Near Me, which gives doctors or opticians everything that they need to build their own e-commerce. So they don't have to worry about hiring a developer for, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And they don't even have to worry about sourcing products because we've integrated it with the supply chain. This doctor was able to take the tools that I've given her, reach out to people that she met through a conference that we hosted in the metaverse, get the guidance that she needed. And now she's able to step outside of the setting that she was in as an entrepreneur and have her own business. Now, she's not going to have a physical business. She's going to have a virtual business. That opportunity was never made available before. And it's not just about the space. We keep talking about the space, but there's real utility that needs to be put there. I mean, the internet doesn't, if you just went to a website and you clicked on a product and nothing happened, like that wouldn't be very exciting. But that's not what happens. You look at a product, you buy it, and guess what? Amazon delivers all these wonderful presents to your door. Like the same things are going to happen with the metaverse, but the difference is the experience that you get while you're making that purchase is going to be so much more immersive. That means lesser returns, higher customer satisfaction, better loyalty. Maybe you have a product with a story and you might say, okay, this product is sustainable. Maybe I don't understand what sustainable means. If you can show me a simulation of a forest disintegrating, I'm like, oh my gosh, now I understand the impact of what these words mean. The sky is absolutely the limit, but you know what? We have to understand ourselves what these things mean contextually so that we can leverage the metaverse in a way that really appropriately tells these stories. You mentioned AI. I'm a fan of AI, but not without the delicate balance of human involvement. We cannot trust AI to do all of our jobs. We have to be able to learn how to use AI with a very, what's the word I'm looking for? Responsible balance. That's it.
Yeah, responsible AI, ethical AI is essential. And so, Babbitt, my next question is for you. When we think about there's great solutions that we can solve using emerging technology, immersive technology, simulations, like even in the medical field, it can be used for, potential future doctors kind of practice on, virtual patients and such. And that's great. But there's also a lot of concerns around our data and protecting our data and hackers and ransomware. We're seeing this in the headlines of even hospitals currently data getting hacked. What are your insights around cybersecurity and why this is important and what we should be doing?
Yeah, so I'm gonna give it to you all straight. When it comes to cybersecurity in the metaverse, there's gonna be the same threats that are out in the real world, but they're probably gonna be more massive and enormous. And it may sound scary, but on the flip side of everything, it's interesting because we're still in the beginning stages of the whole metaverse. So that means we can still build things into to the metaverse and everything within the metaverse. So I think of it as for my old company that I was in, I had to come in and kind of change the culture. The culture was full of people who have been there for a really, really long time. And yes, to change the culture and to make cybersecurity more important, you can give them the trainings, you can slap them on the wrist for doing the wrong things and so forth and so on. But that can only go so far. It kind of just instates fear in them, and you don't necessarily want to do that. So what you do instead is take all the people who are being hired, all the new hires, and then create this curriculum of cybersecurity the second that they step foot, so they have it in their mind. When I'm doing anything, think about cybersecurity. Think about cybersecurity. So I feel like the same thing goes with the metaverse, because the last thing that we want to do is to have the government come in and create all these legislations and all these regulations when it comes to cybersecurity, because we've seen this happen, and that only happens when something like really, really bad happens, but it also takes really, really long. And then once that happened, people, instead of having cybersecurity in the forefront of their mind and thinking about the customers, the clients, or even themselves, they started having cybersecurity as just a checklist for not wanting to get fined, a checklist for doing something because the government said so. So if we can be proactive about cybersecurity instead of reactive about cybersecurity, then we can, like Charlene said, the sky is the absolute limit as long as we continue to build it inside of there. So it's nothing to be innocent, scared of, but it's more something to be interested in, bringing awareness to everyone about cybersecurity and what we can actually do. Because with machine learning and AI, it's endless as long as we add the human element into machine learning and AI, as Charlene said.
Yes, awesome. Now, do you want to talk about the fact that some countries are more ahead than others? Some are taking their time, some are hesitant, and we do know government always feel they need to regulate to protect everybody, but sometimes there's a disconnect with the policymakers at the top, the lawmakers at the top who aren't developers, who aren't engineers, so they don't have that technical background or understanding how a regulation that may be good in their mind is actually harmful for certain industries and sector. We're seeing that within the music industry and what's happening with how our government's regulating content that's being streamed that's Canadian versus non-Canadian. There's some who like that, and there's a lot of content creators who don't because it will cut into their revenue share, right? And these things are always debatable, but it requires diverse perspectives, diverse voices, and a multidisciplinary approach to come to the best solution. So, Bay, my question is for you about, can you comment on countries or regions that are kind of running with the metaverse or more advanced with it than others, and why would some countries perhaps be hesitant? So, what are your insights on this?
Yeah, especially because at this moment I'm doing research on the media narratives about digital transformation in different regions. I always want to add another nuanced lenses, because from the political or maybe like public sector perspectives, there are countries in the world they are more kind of focusing on that. For example, currently we see in Europe, Netherlands itself is very active because Netherlands has a very strong digital infrastructure, and countries like Ireland and Portugal, I guess that in the last decade or 5 years, that they really want to position themselves as leading the leading of digital development and trying to kind of show that they're really dedicated for this innovation. And at the same time, I think from the government's level, especially a lot of Asian countries like South Korea. South Korea actually, Seoul is the first has the first like city level of the twin of the city. So it's like metaverse twin of Seoul. And Japan, a lot of development, Singapore and China. China has a very unique case because we probably know like China has its very unique digital ecosystem. But then that's from the government support level. But I do want to highlight the industry development because in the past, especially during, I would say, in the Web 1 or Web 2 phase, that when we talk about digital transformation, we always think about California, Silicon Valley. But today, Silicon Valley is no longer just a location. It becomes almost like a kind of metaphor. There are Asian Silicon Valley, European Silicon Valley. So in terms of that, I think there's also a lot of regions. If we look at like innovators, entrepreneurs, and also younger generation lead the country's change, then I even see exciting change, like for example in Dubai, but also in African cities, like countries like Nigeria, Ghana. I'm doing some research about their digital transformation at this moment. But in terms of like a social mass adaptation, I do think like Southeast Asia and East Asia is going to play a very big role because of the digital savvy young population. Because we already see some major change in the social commerce, online to offline, Internet of Things, as well as, for example, retailtainment. So these are all playing elements. And very recently, I joined this discussion with this Hong Kong Association about like metaverse in retail industry. So yeah, comparatively, it's very advanced, and also it's very hands-on. So we will see in this year a lot of use cases in some of the Asian countries, I'm sure.
This is awesome. And the use cases are essential because we can learn what to do and what not to do. So this question's for any of the panelists to comment on, right? So as we get into this metaverse, this new virtual world, it does present some concerns of safety, harassment, discrimination, especially as it pertains to women, to people of color, to people who are differently abled and such. Can any of you comment on what should be done to ensure that there is more safety and we minimize harassment and discrimination within the metaverse? Perhaps Karen, if you wanted to start.
Yeah, well, I think, as I said, so one of the things that is important in this regard is to make sure that there is a diversity of people involved in creating and building these spaces. Because those of us who might, for whatever reason, be affected by harassment, uh, need to have a voice in how things are created. We have more insight into how that could happen, and what things need to be put in place in order to involve that. I do think that government policy is important, in this regard. And unfortunately, most people in government aren't very knowledgeable about the metaverse. I really want to highlight and to applaud the work that XRSI, the XR Safety Initiative, is doing, led by Kavya Perlman. In this regard. And for example, they're working with the Australian government, and they've been very active in developing sort of standards around things like child safety, and in making people aware of these issues, and how we should address them. So that sort of work is key. It's absolutely crucial, and we should be supporting them and paying attention to them, especially since the technology is moving so fast, and it takes everyone else so long to catch up to the actual technological developments. So we need to make sure that we are involved in the creation of all the spaces, and also that we are advocating for ways to prevent harassment and discrimination in the metaverse.
That's very helpful. Anyone else want to add?
Well, being a developer of a platform, I have to say that first and foremost, we have to put the emphasis on developers. If you're building a platform, I mean, look at some of these platforms that are out there on social media. They don't really do the best job at protecting people. Cyberbullying is really bad. And I mean, maybe it got out of control, but maybe if they would have foreseen these issues, and I love, Babette, you said proactive. I think that word applies to any part of what we're doing here, because we can learn from history. I mean, we already know what digitalization did to society, what social media, what, as we evolve and become more culturally diverse as a society, we already know the impact those things have had. So we can really be proactive in the way we design these metaverse platforms to create rules and regulations, and there's consequences. People are going to want to be a part of these experiences, and they're not going to be able to participate if people develop their culture and their community guidelines appropriately if they don't play by the rules, and they're not going to want to miss out. So you've got to really make people be accountable for their actions. Like, you can't allow people to just go around and bully anyone, and it goes for any. And there's some people that you wouldn't think would be a minority group. I look at sometimes gamers are now all of a sudden, they're looking at us like, wait a second, you're on our turf. All these years you didn't understand us, you made fun of us, and now the metaverse is cool. I mean, we've got to really learn to understand all of the new cultural diversity that we're going to have.
Awesome. Anyone else want to comment on this?
Yeah, I would like to add something, because I always feel like when we talk about the virtual world, it's in a way it reflects and also kind of like repeat or even showcase like what the real world is. And we have actually learned a lot of things in the history. And what I noticed is that there's a lot of charters and a lot of protocols, I think, considering the ethical and also moral aspects. It's highly important because I'm, again, in the creative industry, we've been now talking all these like changes and disruptions about like, okay, the different considerations such as ecologically and also diversity inclusion. But I feel like, okay, it's because the industry or sector has developed for decades, and then people started to add all these new protocols in it. But now we're starting a new possibility, and then we should really implant the all these considerations and embrace all these like very important aspects in the core. Saying that means that not just like a magazine that in the last when they before they want to publish, they just choose different people to kind of show on the front side, oh, it's diverse. No, that's not enough. It has to come from the core side, like in the technical side, in the financial side. So I think, again, it's like we are working really hard now on change the traditional industry in making sure, like with maybe use the means of like quotas or push all these. But now with the new industry or this new possibility, we really need to fight for the for this yeah, this moment.
Yes, exactly. Anyone else want to comment before I move on? All right. So, as a follow-up to that, when we think about aspects of, say, social media addiction, and even some of the combative nature of these platforms where people are on there to cancel people, to, get so divisive on issues. But it's also a place where people just go to escape from their reality, escape from the reality of the world, because there's also an entertainment nature to these social media platforms, to content we see on film and TV. And it's like this escapism, right? And so now I'm wondering if we immerse ourselves more into this world where we're spending more time in digital spaces, do any of you feel that will disconnect us from the realities of social and economic inequalities, right? What's really happening in our world that we don't like, it's reflected on the internet. This is why we see digital racism and some of these challenges, because we haven't fixed these issues in the real world that we do spend time in. So what are your comments or your insights on this thought of whether or not the metaverse will make us get into this world of escapism and entertainment more, and almost create this illusion of a perfect world? Will it make us disconnected? Will it make us more aware? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think the first thing to understand is that every single person is an individual use case. People have different, I'm in the vision industry and I've been studying visualization, perception, the way that you receive information and you use it to make decisions is a really big part of what you see and everything that you know and how you process that. But on the positive side, I've been a part of physical events where people that I'd brought together virtually met physically, and they were able to really truly connect. I've had people tell me that when I go to conventions, I feel like a wallflower because I don't know anybody. I'm not part of the cool kids club. And I want to go up to somebody who's like an owner of a company. I don't feel comfortable. But because they met somebody that was a president or somebody in a virtual setting, they were able to say, oh, hi, and step outside of their comfort zone. There's also a lot of people that came to our platform that said, I'm autistic. I have a challenge with sensory issues, and now I'm able to actually go and participate where I wasn't able to before. So I think it's all a matter of the person and, being able to be, I mean, like anything, right? Social media, games, life, driving. I mean, we have to be responsible and accountable as individuals and maybe be mindful of how we can be, have an intervention clause if we do see this happening so we can create ways to encourage that balance.
Yes.
I would say that I find that the metaverse does provide enormous opportunities to meet with people who you wouldn't otherwise be able to. However, not everyone has access, and part of that is because of simple access to connectivity. Right, that's the first issue, and then we have the equipment, the hardware, and that's one of the reasons why. I believe that web-based platforms and the web-based metaverse is hugely important. But because the metaverse will be so important to everything that we do, it's absolutely key that the infrastructure is built out and that access to ways of connecting are affordable and available, simply available. And so when you are meeting people in the metaverse, it may not at this point be very representative of all the people in the world, right? Because not everyone is able to be there. But just think of the possibility if everyone could, the sorts of connections we could make across geographic boundaries, across all sorts of differences. It's truly exciting to think about. And even with things like translation, one of the platforms I like to use, Frame VR, has this amazing translation tool. You can use voice and it will translate it in the chat box there. So you could be talking to someone who speaks a language that you don't. You could be communicating in that way. So the potential is enormous, but we have to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to access and participate in the metaverse. And if we can do that, then the possibilities are really beautiful.
Yes, certainly is. Babette, did you want to comment on this?
Yeah, so what Charlene said earlier this year, I was diagnosed with high functioning autism. And when it came to going to all these different events and everything, I never understood why I would get so overstimulated, or I would run into the bathroom like this is too much, or all these different things. And when I finally got diagnosed with autism, I finally understood that it was due to the overstimulation or the processing of everything that was going on. So in my mind, it was like everything was just too much. And then I would just go and grab a drink to relax myself, but not asking why. But then once the pandemic hit and we started having all these different virtual events, then I felt like a little bit better. I was able to be in my own world, be in my own house, be practically anywhere I want with just my laptop, where I don't necessarily have to focus on all these different things going around with me. And then I can still have the one-on-one conversations with people. And then when it comes to the metaverse and then virtually meeting people, one thing that I find that's kind of hard for me to do is to have conversations with people, because I can feel, not only feel the energy, but like the micro movements of like their eyes and then their face and everything. So it kind of distracts me from actually listening or having that full conversation. But if you're like an avatar and I'm talking to you, then it makes it a lot easier for me to actually be focused with everything. And then another thing that was brought up, I don't know who said it, but yesterday she said her child had autism and she was trying to figure out ways to keep them from being overstimulated. And one thing that was really stressful was crossing the street. And yes, you can try to have this real world example of let's try to cross the street, but that's dangerous. But when it comes to the metaverse, you can create the simulation of crossing the street without the actual dangers. So just understanding that when it comes to new technology and a metaverse, and because it's a simulation, the things that you want to do are the things that you have the things that you have difficulty doing, you can practice in the metaverse to get better in the real world without the danger of them. So it makes it more accessible for everybody to use to their own benefits.
That's really good. That's awesome. Does anyone else want to comment?
Yeah, I would like to add something because just now when we were asked to give like our personal and definition of the metaverse, I think I mentioned that I always think, and also me and my colleagues, we in the studio, we believe metaverse eventually should be and will be a way to blend symbiotically the physical and the digital worlds. Because as I'm also a university teacher and I discuss a lot with the students, and I think we always say technology is neither good or bad. It's not neutral either, but it's all depends on how people use it, because everything, it's like a fire. So it brings a lot of convenience, but it also brings a lot of disaster. So it's in the end, it's in the hands of human. And I do think that the content creation is very, very important, because with this 3D and an immersive experience through all these like VR, AR, XR, people get more and more like this very immersive experience and feelings, and education is very important. Sometimes we also discuss the possibility of how can we really give like a certain using a format of like metaverse to stimulate divergent thinking, critical thinking, but most importantly, empathic thinking. Because I think when you are in an immersive experience, then it kind of like make you feel even more vividly. Either it's about ecology, like climate change, but it's also about like different part of the culture. So in that case, we can bring all these experience that probably physically we are not able to immediately have, then already in the metaverse. I think that will be very, very helpful and crucial for the education.
Yes, and that's a common thread that all of you are sharing about empathy, and that is really essential to create a better world for everyone. Safa, did you have anything to add to whether or not we'll be more connected to social issues or less connected because of immersing ourselves in the metaverse?
I think there are many things we should speak about. First, that will or metaverse will easier or the make the experiments easier, especially the dangerous experiment, or we cannot repeat it as the surgeries, as a healthy issues that they can. Have more opportunities to learn and deep learning or knowledge. But in the other side, when I think to my kids in the immersive worlds and games with guns, that make me some worry because that's very dangerous and that maybe I can't think more about the future with this experiment. So that's what I want to focus on.
And as a follow-up to what Saf is highlighting, right? Another hat that many women wear is mothers, right? Some of you have children. There's also people who are, caregivers or godparents to other people's children, their aunties and such. But when we think about parents and what should they be aware of, and why is the metaverse relevant for parents? Do any of you want to comment on this?
Well, I have to say, when we were at the final stage of getting our metaverse developed, and I was trying, like, again, was new to this, and I was sitting down with my husband and my 8-year-old, and I'm like, how are we going to get people to be able to communicate? And my 8-year-old goes, why don't you use proximity chat? And I was like, what the heck is that? And it's
Oh,
a
these
real
kids are advanced. They know.
so my 8-year-old has become, and by the way, just so you guys know, your child can actually be an employee up to a certain amount of hours. This is a great opportunity for your kid to get involved and have it be a tax relief. But my son creates avatars and he goes in with me and we play, and he's like, Mom, I don't really think that's a good experience. I think this would be better. But you know what? He plays Roblox. Like, he is the future. All of these brands, they're going into Roblox for a reason. They want to be able to kind of imprint these little kids and, get in front of them before they grow up. And as parents, we've really got to take a humongous step back and look at everything. And I always look at, what is the intent? What are you trying to do here? Are you trying to educate for a good reason? Are you trying to, add some sort of subliminal messaging so that I can educate my kid and say, look, I can't stop you from seeing this, but let's talk about it. Let's talk. We cannot in today's society stop our, I have a 21-year-old and a 20-year-old. They had very limited access to technology, an hour a day. I feel like a terrible mother because my kid has a lot more than that today. But you can't limit them. They do school online. They do play online. So you're going to have to teach them how to be, again, responsible and accountable for their own actions.
Anyone else want to comment on this topic of
Yeah,
why the metaverse is relevant?
I'm a mother of two teenage boys. My oldest is 15, and I still remember when I moved to the Netherlands from China like 23 years ago. I've never been abroad before, so I hardly know anything about what the real like European life is. But now I see like my kids. He didn't travel to many part of the world, but through the digital like media and digital contents and social media, he's very open to all like different culture. And I also have students, very young students, like 18 or 19-year-old. Actually, I can't wait to see these group of people to take the lead on that, because
Mhm.
I think the younger generation, because of they are exposed to other culture, they are more connected, they have
Mhm.
less bias, and
Yeah.
they're more open. And I
Mhm.
think they already have a nature of being more empathic than the older, like country leaders or business leaders of, I
Mhm.
don't know, older generations. So I actually think that, yeah, we are the very active people in this field, and let's really nurture this and leave this really, really good space to the younger generation. Don't
Mhm.
spoil it, because I think we somehow already ruined real world, and we need to really let them to work together and to save this.
Right, because the youth, I always say to youth that I mentor, you are the leaders of the future today. Like you're leaders now. You don't have to wait until you're a certain age to lead and to make influence. And when we think about youth, children, and how they learn, Karen, did you want to comment on how the metaverse will, impact, change, transform how we learn, how we connect?
Absolutely, absolutely. And one of the key points here is that, we are beings who live in a 360-degree world with 3D objects in it. And until fairly recently, all of the media that we consume has been bounded by a rectangular frame, whether it's a computer frame, whether it's a tablet or a smartphone or a movie screen, a TV. Everything is sort of bounded by a frame. And we need to reimagine the possibilities for education, given that we have this enormous interactive canvas to work with in building educational experiences. And I think that, just like, as I said earlier, governments and policies have not been able to keep up with the development of technology. It's been difficult for education to do so as well. And we really need to be able to do a complete reimagination of what is possible. There is so much more out there, and yes, it's difficult to make change, but the rewards are could be great. And I think that children can be more engaged. We can learn in a way that is more natural to our existence as physical beings in a 360 and 3D world. Um, Once we get used to creating these sorts of learning experiences that take advantage of those affordances of the metaverse. And it's not going to be easy. We have systems in place that are sort of fall by default into the mode of, this is the way we've always done things. It does require culture change and people being willing to take risks and really rethink everything from the ground up. So it's an exciting time, and I can't wait to see what develops.
Awesome. And it's also good to have some guiding principles. Like one of the things I like to say is we have to think about who we helping, who we hurting. There's also a very profit-driven model at the center of these things. And sometimes what's good for the bottom line is not good for the environment or humanity. So we want to also keep that in mind as decisions are being made and as this is unfolding. Now, I do want to talk about overcoming barriers and, being women in male-dominated spaces like my space, public policy, government relations is also very male-dominated, just like tech. How have you overcome the barriers you faced in your sector as a woman? And we could perhaps start with Babbitt.
Yeah, so like I said, I graduated in 2019 as the only African American female from Cal Poly Pomona. And that was a bit strange, I guess I can say. I went to a private school too in high school. So I'm kind of used to being like the only African American, but to be the only African American female in a room full of like mainly males was interesting. Like one thing that my professor asked me was, "Are your parents engineers too?" And that kind of took me aback. But as I got further in my career, I figured out the why and figured out that I'm doing this for a bigger cause than myself. Once I got into the actual career of cybersecurity, I found out that there were more people interested in cybersecurity. There were more women, more African Americans. And then I had a bunch of like little girls coming up to me asking me, oh, how did you get into cybersecurity? And when I was that age, I didn't even know that it existed. So I just started to continue like trucking on my mission to be a woman in cybersecurity, be a motivation or be an inspiration, because I know there's a bunch of little girls and little boys looking up to me who are interested in cybersecurity. And that's the one thing that just led me to keep going no matter how hard that it gets.
That's so wonderful.
Yeah, Safa, did you want to comment?
With the careers, we can say after 10 years approximately in working in web design sector and e-commerce. If we can say about sector, the people don't understand the management of the projects in general. That's for the customer, if we can say. So they think if they make a new project, especially online, the project will work alone without marketing, without any efforts that for sectors. And for me, as a woman, work remotely for approximately 9 years, I can say the time management that is the big challenge because the house is the comfortable zone and also the workplace. Also, the people cannot take the remote job seriously before Corona, and that become better after Corona. But people still feel the homework or the work from home is not such as office work.
Right. So as we head down to the last few minutes, I want those of you who didn't get a chance to comment on the question about overcoming barriers, just to share. We'll start with you, Bay, and then Charlene, and end with you, Karen. You know, what advice would you give to women? Just a real short snippet of advice to women who want to enter into male-dominated sectors.
Yeah, I had a career in NGOs and journalism world, and I noticed that the decision-making part is always dominated by the alpha male. So in the end, it kind of also affected how the consumer and user-facing contents. And now, like the industry, they're trying to add all this diversity in it, which I found it a little bit like too late. Yes, at this moment, I still feel like there's almost like still quite male dominated. But what I really like what Babette just mentioned, to get girls excited and interested in it. And I think women, I think by nature, we are connectors and communicators. It is very important to be able to really communicate this to the general public and has mass adoption. At the same time, I think this nature of being caring and considerable, like we talked about ethical issues, moral issues for the younger generation, those are the very important elements that women can bring it into it. But I do think that it is important for us to like work together to kind of really get the decision-making role, not just like the side job or the side role, but really like in the core, like to steer about the direction of a business or direction of a user experience. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, like what we are doing now.
I think that really says it all, because we are down to like 1 minute, and I don't want the call to get disconnected. So I just do want to say thank you to each of you for your insights, for your time, for your expertise. You added so much value to this discussion. You're doing great work in your respective sectors. Thank you to, GatherVerse for putting on the SHE Summit and the team behind this, Christopher Lafayette and Joanne, for all that you do for our community. And it was again great to be your moderator, and thank you for this opportunity, and enjoy the rest of the summit.
Oh, thank you, Stacey. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.